everybody, welcome back to The Hobby Musician. You're joining us today right in the middle of our current building project, but don't worry, if this is your first time here and you want to get caught up on everything we've done so far, click the link at the top right now and that'll take you to a playlist where I've arranged only the episodes in this current build. Well, today's video is all about the paint job. Now, it's one of my personal favorite parts of any build because if you think about it, most other things that you do when you're building an instrument have to do with function. You have to build a neck a certain way because it has to function correctly. You got to wind pickups a certain way because they have to function a certain way. But painting and staining, that is one of the creative outlets for this. It's one way that you as a builder can express yourself and explore some unique territory. Well, the painting process is fairly simple when you think about the big picture. When we started out, I took the bodies, and you can see in this time lapse, the very first thing I did was I used kind of a primer coat. So I'm putting on about 5 or 6 really light coats of just flat white primer. And the reason I'm doing this in light coats is when I'm doing my method, I'm hanging up the bodies to do this outside. If you get too heavy on the coats, the paint can start to run and you get these drips going down. And you don't want that, or at least I don't want that for my base coat. I want a nice smooth base coat for that. After I let that set for several days, I came back and I started to do some tests for my idea for this crazy psychedelic paint job that I envisioned. Way back when I first thought about this project, I really came up with the idea, or I remembered some of these images of guitars that I've seen with these cool swirled hydro-dipped paint jobs. You can get these amazing patterns with these bright, vibrant colors. And I really like that. I like that aesthetic. And since we're doing kind of a crazy, single cut body style, I wanted to match it with kind of a crazy hydro-dipped paint. So I did what any good builder does. I did tests. I went out, I got my water tub set up. I even cut out a scrap piece of wood in the shape and the size of the body. And I started to dip everything on there. And I'm about to show you the test thing. And I'll just say this, it was a complete and total failure. So this is the test piece that I tried to use. I did everything. I did multiple trials of this. I read the instructions to the letter, followed the instructions to the letter. I watched tutorials on other channels. I bought the exact brand of paints that these other builders were using. And whatever was going on, whether it was maybe the paints themselves were expired, the pigments may have, kind of globbed up and I wasn't getting, what I needed to in the paint, the swirling technique, so dipping or dropping paint on the top of water and then dipping down a body was giving me this spotty coverage. I wasn't getting thickness. All of this is supposed to be orange and green. Those are the colors I picked for the test. But you can see here, I get like a few streaks of dark color. All of this is very faintly green and very faintly orange. It wasn't covering. And I don't have, the luxury of doing, infinite numbers of tests and all that kind of stuff. So in the moment, I abandoned that idea. And I want to take a minute to kind of share with you, if you're building projects, sometimes I've discovered I have to pivot. I have to critically solve, whatever problem is facing me, and this was a problem. So I took a couple of days, and I sat down, and after I got over the frustration, I started to think, is there any other interesting, unique, crazy kind of aesthetic that I could go for? And I remembered, hey, I've also seen instruments with kind of a paint splatter idea. So I went back out after this was dry, I turned it over and I started to experiment just up here a little bit. I didn't do the whole thing, but I started to experiment with different implements, wooden sticks, paint brushes, whatever you have, just with some splattering of the colors that I intended to use. So the reds, blues, yellows, and blacks. And I really started to dig this aesthetic. So again, remembering that we've got the white base coat, I then settled on this. So I took out the bodies, and I laid it down flat on the ground on this tarp. And you can see in this time lapse, I just took color by color and I went on, and the benefit of doing this splatter painting technique is that you really can kind of do a little bit and look at it, and then you could do a little bit more and look at it again until finally I had something I was pleased with. So I stopped and I let it dry, and then I flipped it over and did the back the next day. And without further ado, here is the finished product. Here is the body that we ended up getting. There's a couple of features here, and I know the neck is set in there, and I did the same thing for the headstock, but there's a couple features that I want to say that I'm really proud of. After I got all of this done, I made sure to keep the pickup covers. Now they're pushed all the way in here. I don't have the pickups fully in, but the pickups themselves I wanted to have in there so that that pattern, you can see the pattern as I would splatter it, it would carry over the tops of the pickups, so that visual would stay there for the audience. Likewise, on the back, the cover. These are those magnetic covers that we had made to go to cover up the electronics cavity and that kind of stuff. Well, before I did the splatter, I put it in so that you can see these lines would carry over and kind of complete that unbroken aesthetic over the entire thing. And after this was all done, the last thing that I'll share with you is, I wanted to protect this, so clear coat. After these were nice and dry, I hung them back up and did, again, 5 to 6 very light coats of clear coat. And then you can come back and you can sand and polish it down to this kind of nice shiny finish that you see here with me right now. So overall, I really like how this aesthetic turned out. And again, even having to pivot from my original idea, I still think we've got a killer looking paint job. And it carries through, this idea, this color scheme carries through with how we treated the fretless frets that'll go through the fingerboard here. So with that out of the way, you can see we're basically ready to start assembling this. I'm going to get the pickups loaded into their covers, and I'm going to start to get the electronics kind of loaded into their cavity, but pop a bridge on there, pop a nut, and some tuners up there, and we've got ourselves a finished instrument. So I hope you got something out of today's episode. Definitely come back and check out our finishing episodes for this. But as always, I want to thank you for watching, and until next time, play on, my friends. Play on.